We've talked about solving one-step and multi-step equations. In this video, we are going to talk about solving multi-step equations that have variables on both sides of the equal sign. So anytime I say both sides or left side, right side, it's always in reference to the equal sign. You're going to take your notes on the guided notes half sheet, and then it's going to go on the next page in your interactive notebook. Remember, you are watching, you are listening, and you are taking notes. Pause and rewind as needed. So what we're going to be doing is still using the properties of equality, so our addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division to solve equations with variables on both sides. Now, our step 1 and our step 3 are the same as when we had just multi-step. First, we're going to simplify each side, and then our last step is to isolate the variable. In between, we have to make sure that we get the variables together on one side. We'll use inverse operations for that as well. So first of all, remember, simplify means eliminate grouping symbols, and combine like terms. Okay, so that's what we're going to do first. Now I'm going to draw a little dashed line where my equal sign is. And I'm going to simplify on the left, I'm going to simplify on the right before I do anything else. On the left, there's really nothing to do. 2p minus 9, there are no grouping symbols, there are no like terms. So that's just going to stay 2p minus 9 equals. On the right side, we have the parentheses. That's our grouping symbols. So remember, the way we eliminate grouping symbols is by distributing. This has to be your first step. There's no other good option. There's one other option, but it's not a good option. Your best option here is to distribute. So 3 times 2p is 6p, and then 3 times negative 5 is negative 15. So make sure that we distribute to both of our terms. Remember, the parentheses are there to tell us multiply both of these things by 3. Okay, so now I've done my step 1. The next thing that we need to do is to get our variables together. So remember, we're going to use our inverse operations here. If I'm crossing the equal sign, I've got to do the opposite. So I have 2p and 6p. I want to get them together. There are multiple ways that we could do this, but the best way is probably to subtract our 2p. Again, I'm doing the opposite because I'm crossing that equal sign. What's going to happen there is 2p minus 2p is 0. 0 minus 9 is negative 9. And then I get 4p, whoops, 4p minus 15. 6p minus 2p is 4p. Okay, and then last but not least, isolate the variables. And once again, remember, we are using our inverse operations, and we're kind of doing our PEMDAS in reverse. So here, I'm being multiplied by, let's find our variable first. My variable's right here, being multiplied by 4, and then it's subtracting 15. So I'm actually going to take care of the minus 15 first. And I really pretty much have to take care of that one first. So I'm going to add the 15. That's our additive property, our addition property of equality. Negative 15 plus 15 is 0. And so we get 4p equals, and then negative 9 plus 15. Signs are different, so I'm going to subtract and keep the sign of the larger. So that's a positive 6. Then, to finish it off, I am going to divide by 4. Now that's a fraction. Don't let that scare you. So I get p equals, I am going to reduce it to 3/2. If you wrote 1.5, or if you wrote 1.5, any of those would be correct. I prefer the improper fraction. That's what I prefer. So our answer on this one is 3/2. We could do a quick check, but I'm going to go ahead and move on to our other 3 examples. Okay, example 2. First, I want to simplify each side. So on the left, I have no grouping symbols and I have no like terms. So that one's already done. And on the right, I have no grouping symbols, I have no like terms. So that one's already done. Okay, now what I want to do next is get my variables together on one side. So I've got 6n on this side and negative 2n on this side. So I can either bring the 6n to the right or bring the negative 2n to the left. I'm going to choose to do that because it gives me a positive number. So negative 2n plus 2n is 0. 6n plus 2n is 8n. Bring down your plus 21, bring down your equals, bring down your minus 3. And now I need to isolate my variable. So I'm going to subtract 21 from both sides. Remember, work furthest away from the variable first. So I get 8n plus 0, so I don't write it, equals, signs are the same, so I add and keep the sign. And then my final step, 8n, that's 8 times n. To undo multiplication, we divide. So 8 divided by 8 is 1. So 1n equals negative 3. That's our answer. That's isolated. Remember, n and 1n are the same. That's what we're going for, is getting the n by itself. If you don't like the 1 there, just don't write it. That's fine. I can do a quick check. I'm just going to come right above and do a little check. 6 times negative 3 is negative 18 plus 21 equals negative 3 minus 2 times negative 3. That's going to be plus 6. And either way we get 3. So we know we did it correctly. Okay, 2 more examples to do in this video. So for example 3, again I'm going to draw my little dashed line here where my equal sign is. So I remember anytime I cross that dashed line, I've got to be using my inverse operations. Don't forget that. All right, step 1, simplify each side. Well, on the left side, there's just a 23, so there's no simplifying there. On the right side, however, I've got this minus with parentheses. So first I need to eliminate my grouping symbols. So remember, when you distribute a negative, it's going to change all of your signs. So that becomes minus 2y plus 4. And continuing to simplify, I can combine some like terms. 16 plus 4 is 20 minus 2y. So my step 1 of simplify each side, done. Now, get my variables together on one side. There is only the one variable. It's only right here. So I don't need to do that. So now I go to my inverse operations. So again, start furthest away from your y first. I'm going to subtract 20. And I get 23 minus 20 is 3 equals negative 2y. And then dividing by negative 2. Again, I get 3 halves. I didn't do that on purpose. This time it's negative. Whoops. There we go. Something's happening to my screen. There we go. So I get y equals a negative 3 halves. Again, that's what I prefer, is the improper fraction. But if you write negative 1.5 or negative 1.5, those are equally correct. Okay, we have one more example to look at. Multi-step equations. Hopefully you can see that each example is going to be different. So the only way you're going to get good at these is to practice all of the different ways that we could approach them, or all of the different things that we need to do. Again, 3 steps. Simplify each side, get your variables together, isolate that variable. Those are our 3 steps. Okay, this one looks super duper ugly. Looks really quite terrible. I'm going to do my dashed line there, and I'm going to start with simplifying each side. So starting on the left here, I do have this 5 that needs to get distributed, so I'm going to do that. So I have 1 plus 5 times 7 is 35, plus 5 times 3x is plus 15x. And I'm going to go ahead and combine my like terms while I'm at it. So I get 36 plus 15x. Okay, on the right-hand side, I've got like terms. So I can add them. 12x plus 5x is 17x, and then I'll just carry it down. Okay, so step 1 is done. I simplified. I've eliminated my grouping symbols and I've combined my like terms. Now I want to get my x's together on one side. Now, I don't want to subtract 17x because that's going to leave nothing on the right-hand side, and I don't want that. So my only good option here is to subtract my 15x. Again, I'm crossing that equal sign. That's why I'm using my inverse. So 15x minus 15x is 0. So 36 plus 0 is 36. 17x minus 15x is 2x. So 2x means 2 times x. To undo multiplication, I divide. And so my final answer is x equals 18. Doing my division there. So again, as you're working these, every single problem is going to be different. But the steps to get there, if you consistently simplify each side, so eliminate your grouping symbols, combine like terms, get your variable together on one side, then isolate that variable. You'll get very good and very fast at solving these.